order the study session for the Mount Diablo Unified School District Board of Education for March 7th. And we are going to start with a roll call. Trustee Mayo? Here. Trustee Dirk? Here. Trustee Hanson?
Here.
Trustee Mason is here. And we will get to our public comment period. The public may address the board concerning items that are scheduled for discussion during the study session only. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened. Speakers are not allowed to yield their time. Does not look like we have any speaker cards tonight, so we will get right to our presentation. Dr. Meyer?
Yes, thank you. Tonight we have the good fortune of having our team here to present and to lead a study session on our bond. And I would like to introduce our teammates here. I will start with Dominic Machi, our Director of Food Services, John Wilford, our Measure C Interim Director, Richard Jackson, Director of Maintenance and Operations, and Rose Ramos, CBO. We also have General Counsel Larry Shanky. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Rose, and we will have our presentation, and certainly feel free to ask questions throughout.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Meyer, members of the audience. There we go. Tonight's presentation is just to talk about the remaining funds remaining in Measure C, and this is just simply a recap of what we have left by series. For Series F, we have about 8.4 million. Series G, it's virtually untouched from when it was issued at 38.4, so for a total of 46.6. Now, some of this information was presented to you at the last board meeting, and some decisions were made about allocating that 46.6, which you'll see a little later in the presentation. And at the bottom of this slide is just a note to say that we've spent about 286 million of Measure C today as of January. And now John's going to come up and talk about some of the projects that we've completed so far by school site.
Thank you, Rose. As Rose stated, this is the Measure C projects completed by school site. It's pretty much all of our sites. It covers HVAC solar program, technology, modernization, security, high school enhancements 1 and 2, specifically for that first slot. And then all the rest are covered the same way, except for modernization in group 4 is taking place right now. And the dates that are on there are more roughly for the modernization phase of it, whereas everything else was completed much earlier. I wanted to make sure that you guys know that the details on everything that has been expended are available on the Measure C site. So we've had the quarterly reports there for a long time, and a lot of the other details are there. So if you go to that site that's noted on the slide, and I can state it here, it's mdusdmeasurec.org.
If I could share regarding details, it's a great web page where you can see things that are in progress as well. So you click on the school, and It'll have a check, and if it's blue, it's completed. If it's or maybe it's green, it's completed. If it's blue, it's still in progress with an estimated date of completion.
Right, and as we moved through it, we've kept it up to date. Probably needs an update as we get ready to do our April quarterly report, but we're close. Next, you've seen this before. We arrived here by outreach, bond language on the ballot, board workshops, community meetings at feeder patterns, parent committees from the sites, site staff, district staff, and consultants.
So were those just done at the beginning, or have they progressively been done as you go out to spend more money?
They've progressively been done as we've spent more money. And maybe our last round of meetings was summerish.
Next slide. These are just a list, a recap for you all of the projects that were approved at the February 26th board meeting. And that total was $21.7 million. So it's just there for your information. And then these are the remaining projects for consideration. So we'll have a presentation shortly by Dominic. He'll talk about the food service, the 2 phases of that project, phase 1, the warehouse, and then phase 2, the central kitchen. And then John can answer any questions on the Measure C Facilities Improvement Program request. There's 2 items there. And so that total for the food service phase 1 and 2 is 11 million, and the facilities is 2.1 million. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to Dominic.
Good afternoon. In the Measure C project for considerations in food service, phase 1 would be a upgrade of the warehouse that we presently have in our maintenance yard. What would that do for us? That would give us the capability of being able to support all 45 school sites, 45 of our working kitchens. Presently, we're very limited presently with our purchasing warehouse, and that's just due to many issues that we don't have the capability to support all the schools. It also creates centralized food storage, and the big thing is it really creates an inter-distribution system within our school district that can be provided by food services. And that is huge, because right now, presently, we're using a broadline or a vendor distributor who is actually doing all the distribution to all of our school sites. So we would do that in-house. That would definitely improve food quality, and that would also upgrade a lot of our procurement practices, because if you can imagine, by the distributors doing that, we're creating almost 150 to 200 invoices each week. We would get down to about 10. So, because it'd be one location. And it allows us to go ahead and use our Business Plus system that we presently have as a system here in the district. Another is this would also, by putting an in-house distribution system, would reduce costs from our distributors going out site to site, because we would be able to do that in-house. The other is, presently next year, we are going to be moving towards being a member of the California Department of Education's North State Co-op for our commodities. And so that would allow us to bring in brown box or USDA specified products at $2.85 versus what we're presently purchasing at $51 per case right now from a vendor. So that would allow us to distribute that out to all of our school sites. It's also by doing that because the US specified food allows us to do more scratch cooking. Cheese is an example. Our DOD program, which is fresh fruits and vegetables, many of those things can all be part of the warehousing interdistribution system that we would put in place. This would also give us an opportunity to bring in locally sourced food that we can purchase within our region because it would have one centralized location. That seems to be always the struggle when we want to go to locally sourcing food, is to have the ability to distribute to all 45 of our sites, which presently most manufacturers cannot do, or farms or things of that nature. So this allows us to have more control of the food that we're bringing in to our program through the school district program. So I think that's a huge important key. The other thing is the Food Nutrition Services will make the investment as allowable cost under the USDA that we would be able to support and invest in refrigeration, freezers, the pallet locations, all the warehouse equipment that internally we would need inside the warehouse. So that would be of no cost to the general fund. And the other is this would also create some movement from the transportation department because presently they are sharing part of the warehouse, that they would be moved into the purchasing warehouse location in front of offices there. So, and some other upgrades that would occur for them. So this is a good thing for transportation. So.
I have one question in here.
Sure.
Before you go to the next slide. Two questions really. One is you mentioned, and which bullet is it? Let's see, the third bullet down, back one slide, the third bullet down, to eliminate the higher cost. Do we have the delivery capacity? Because I'm trying to envision this in my head. So it all comes into the one large warehouse and then we deliver it out. Do we have the delivery capacity in terms of vehicles and
so we would
manpower?
also invest.
Or is that impacted?
So presently our model is now we have 3 drivers that's already in our system. We are at the point now that we have gotten to the point that we need to make an investment in our fleet. So our trucks would be a lot larger. And so we would also put in a routing distribution system that we could, with our present 3 drivers, that could be able to hit all 45 sites in bulk delivery. So that's the key. Is it
So
would
they'd
be,
have routes like the bus drivers where you get this lane of schools, or
yes, and actually we do have those routes now.
so that wouldn't impact that, but
No,
eventually you would be overwhelmed, right, with three you're talking about upgrading it. Would you need vehicles and drivers eventually?
well, we already have the drivers,
Right,
so that
so
part we're
three
taking
would
care of.
still be sufficient.
Absolutely. The only thing we would probably need in the warehouse, we would need a warehouse personnel staff that we would need in there, but that, yeah, and then another forklift driver or somebody who's a utility person that would be able to do the order fulfillment piece. So, the way I figured it is for each of the distribution routes that we would be able to, each route would have about 8 to 9 stops per day. Our thing is that we make sure that we get out early in the morning so we're transparent out at the school site so we don't interrupt any type of operations of the school site. And so that means we're out off the docks by 5 a.m., 5:30. And so that gives us plenty of time and then to have staff. The big thing is too, is being able to use our Business Plus system, which I've already talked to Business Plus. We've already gone through some presentations. It's an excellent system and it'll be able to support us as far as receiving, checking in, and shipping out. So,
I had a comment, I guess, more than a question. It would seem that this would allow us to serve more fresh food to our kids, because I know when I used to work in the after-school program, we could only get fresh fruit one day a week because it was a storage issue. So if we got a upgraded storage place, seems like the food going out to the schools will be much fresher, because not only can we store it, but we're getting it closer to home, correct?
yes, and what it allows really is that it allows the school district and the food service program to control the food that's coming in. Presently, we don't have that control right now. We are doing that through cooperative bids, and that has been the model, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to take it one step further, we would be able to, as next year I'll be going out to bid with specific products that we would want, and this would give us that opportunity. Right now, we've been at the mercy of our distributor, which is, we haven't had a really good year, so it's right.
So since we're talking about replacing the current warehouse, when was the current building built? Do we have that information? Just if someone from the public were to ask us?
Yeah, we went and did a visit already to take a look to make sure that the building was structurally sound, and I'm going to maybe refer to John real quick. I don't know the actual date. I'm going to assume it was maybe in the 50s.
Yeah, it's pretty old. I don't have the exact date either.
We can get that
Yeah,
information.
we can get that to
We
you.
can definitely-
And then what type of construction is it, and how will that compare to the new construction? Will it, for example, will the new construction be less accessible to vermin or animals, that sort of thing, versus the current construction?
It's an easy yes.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yes.
They're all.
Well, because yes, and sorry, you're talking about if we were to upgrade the facility itself?
Right,
Is that what you're saying?
because I understood this is a complete replacement of the structure, or is it just a modernization of the current structure?
I think we were thinking about modernization first. We haven't made that decision yet because what is the most cost effective for the district, like the rest of the district?
Right.
There is a shell. And so with that shell, what we need to make the judgment call is, do we need to, because we know there's going to need to be some upgrading of some foundation for our freezers and refrigerators and power locations. But is it worthwhile, or is it better? We have not, I don't think any decisions have been made at that time
So
yet.
you haven't made a decision yet whether it will be a complete replacement or a modernization of the current
Yes.
building.
For
We have
phase
not
one,
done-
for phase one, correct.
For phase one, yeah.
Thank you.
Can I go back, because I had two parts to my question, which was on the number of drivers, and then the bullet, the second from the bottom, which mentions investing in new delivery truck fleet. Do we know?
So I need new trucks right now.
Right. I'm
So,
not fighting that.
No, 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 I
I'm
know.
questioning, because you said 3 drivers are enough, so we're talking about 3 new trucks
Oh, yeah. I'm going to need
or
3 new.
more?
Well, I think right now we can do with 3 new trucks. Presently, what's happened is our trucks are actually, the boxes are too small. They're 14-foot boxes.
Right.
We need to move in a direction towards an 18 to 20-foot box. There is some weight limitations that I have to be careful of because that creates another a classification for the drivers. But one of the things is taking a look, because the other piece is you have to make sure that the the bumpers match up, because one of the great things about this warehouse, it has a loading dock, a bay dock already, that we can move our trucks in. It makes it so much more efficient that when I've seen many central kitchens and warehouses that I've had, we have not had that. And we spend a lot of time up on the loading, on the gates going up and down. This already has that infrastructure in place. So we would be able to match up to the truck. So you have to purchase the right truck, the right bumper that matches the right height. And I'm already in favor, because next year, still, we're gonna need new trucks. Our trucks are, to be honest, they've reached their age. And so we need to replace our whole fleet.
Do we know the cost of trucks out of this? It's just factored into this.
Yeah, I mean.
I don't care, you don't have to have the,
It's outside of this.
because it's saying there's no cost to the district's general fund. That's what I'm looking at.
Everything's gonna be supported by the Food Nutrition Services.
Okay, this is where I'm trying to go, is what costs might be folded in here? So the driver's salaries is out of your budget. The trucks would be out of your budget, and we're talking about 3 trucks and 3 drivers, and your projections are good for
We will be
the
able to
long
handle it.
run?
Yeah.
And then you mentioned, my last point on this was you mentioned other districts, and that was my actual other question, is we're a large district.
Mhm.
We have a couple other large districts around, and you've been out and about. Is this really something other districts have already been using, or we're just lagging?
I don't wanna say the word
You
lagging.
could say, I said
Okay,
it.
lagging,
I
sorry.
said it. I'm very into not lagging.
To be honest, so West Contra Costa Unified, I had come on board with them when they had just built their central kitchen, and of course, the amount of schools was a little bit greater, but as far as the same amount, close to amount of meals that we had, they had put in a huge central kitchen facility. It was connected to the warehouse with about 7 bays connected to them. We drove into 7 cities. I was in charge of the day-to-day operations of the district. Our trucks, we had a fleet of at least 3. In this case, it was 4 at West Contra Costa, because we were in the hills of Kensington, all the way out to almost to Martinez. Yeah, the geography was huge. I think here, the advantageous to us is the maintenance yard is in the central hub of our district, and we have freeway access. And so I think with the drivers, we should be able to, by breaking up the district into quadrants, that we should be able to give them each 8 or 9 stops per day that we can handle with the 3. To be honest, the savings of that, by using our commodities in the reduction of cost there, besides getting away from the distributor distributing all of our food, there's a cost savings there, could give us some future growth into positions in the future, to be honest. And so that is something also I'll be looking at too. I mean, this is part of the growth of the department.
Well, and just a follow-up to that too, is I'm actually, as you mentioned, there's 3 drivers. I'm very impressed that 3 drivers can do this, because you are up at the crack of dawn and they cover this. And then can I just ask, just out of not knowing right now, I mean, that's impressive, 3 drivers and 3
I
trucks.
mean, they're supporting right now, we support 29 schools, but they're not at full-time FTE.
Do they make one, will they make one early morning delivery and that's it for the day, or are there 2 runs?
So when you,
So-
so when you do the distribution, you want to be,
I mean, at one site, is it one site, one run? That's not how many.
Yeah.
Is it, I just don't know, I'm asking.
well, your goal is always, that's where you have to match up the size of the box of the truck, and you want them to go out one time.
Right.
And you don't want them coming back. If they come back, they're helping to support by order fulfillment, which is going to be the constant. There's going to be constant movement in this warehouse, which is the purpose of the lead warehouse person, as well as another second that will help do that. So yes, by loving the larger box size, that will allow us to go out once and not come back. Now, the one
That's what
thing
I'm
too,
wondering, with the planning ahead, that you're trying to economize even in that respect.
exactly.
And then the sites can receive all that and be ready for it?
Well, they're doing it now.
Okay, so it'll be
Yeah,
the same.
I mean, to be honest, I wish we all built schools like Wren Elementary School that had a loading dock that we could just go right up to, but
Yeah, I can think of quite a few of the schools that don't have a loading dock per se,
and it's pretty common for us.
but, so you will have to use the lift, but they're
Well, I'm
still.
looking at the ripple effects to sites too, because when you change the hub, sometimes the little satellite sites end up.
Yeah, I mean, the
You've
biggest thing
already
that
thought that through.
Well, I've thought it through that now that we're mentioned, I'll need a loading dock zone for Mr. Jackson to in front of the school site. But, right now, they're out at the sites, and our biggest thing, same thing we had at West Contra Costa or at San Ramon Valley, we just want to make sure we don't want to disrupt student drop-off, which is sometimes is the issue. We don't want to get away with the buses, which is sometimes is an issue. So if there's certain gates that we can get through or access points throughout the school site, and we'll work with the site administrators on that to where we can drop off and be, again, transparent. That's what we want to be.
I'm just looking to see if in changing operations here, which is great, you're thinking ahead, being creative, being modern, but sites aren't always up to speed that way, and so would there be a ripple effect on cost for sites to
No.
modify?
No.
That's the main thing. There's
No,
no
not at all.
additional cost out there. They can work with it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So if you're doing deliveries or starting deliveries, so they're on the road at 5:45, because you said 5:30, something like that.
Yeah.
Are all of our sites kitchen staff in the kitchens at that time of day to receive, or that's a logistic that you'll be working out?
So, yeah, I mean, sometimes the actual drivers can actually do the put away. I mean, our goal is
You would only have to put away
perishable products. I mean, dry storage, we can go ahead and have staged, so when the staff comes in, they can put away. Our goal is, right now, we have many schools that our staff usually starts at about 6:30, in our Cambridge, Fair Oaks, and some of our heavy student population. But then on some of our other school sites, we just started this week, Silverwood Elementary, and we did a second chance breakfast. So that's going to help support that staff to come in, so we can kind of offset costs with that. And it also creates opportunity for our staff also, which was great. We're getting close to about 100 breakfasts, which is good. That's for us. I'm taking that as a success story as, the first 3 days. And hopefully we just need to keep maintaining that and keep communicating to parents that we're out there. So. All right, so in phase 2, our consideration is for the central kitchen. And number one, definitely a central kitchen will improve food quality and food safety. That's an automatic. The other is that we would be able to create restaurant quality food to support all of our 45 school sites. And what does that mean? It means sauces, and soups, and salads, and sandwiches that we could possibly produce from our central kitchen, which right now the goal is to replace the manufacturers that we are presently buying from and doing that cooking in-house, which therefore we can control the standardization throughout the whole district, what we're making for our students. The other thing is, meat production I put in there, which is something that is something that is a new concept and something I want to entertain, because I think it brings me back to my culinary days of the larger scales of the Bohemia Club and the Bohemian Grove. That's what I did. And it was something that we could support using antibiotic-free chicken, grass-fed beef, and really put us into the future. Another one that I think is something to talk about is the in-house catering program. We can do that. We can support all of our sites through catering. That can either be done with our new central kitchen. We also have a second location with Loma Vista as another possible catering location. So I think the central kitchen really gives us a lot of opportunity. The other is when we do this, it also is going to be creating foods that is going to be fair and equitable for all students. So the same student at Cambridge Elementary, I'm not picking on the students of Cambridge Elementary, but would get the same food would be served to the students out at Bancroft Elementary School. So it would be fair across the board, and I think that's very important to know. The other is, which presently right now we don't have that capability, but the other is a reduction in food costs of about 8 to 10%, because we would be able to make things in-house instead of paying for the manufacturer. We can create opportunities for our own people to have that opportunity to produce the food for our students. So there will be a huge reduction in savings. I've seen this at Davis Joint Unified School District. Typically, a school district can run a good program, can run a food cost pretty much 35, maybe 36%. When I was in Davis, by using this model, we were down to 28, 29%. So we were very aggressive, and we fully utilized all of our commodities. And I have a recipe database that I'll be bringing forward to my staff. The other is, again, that we can locally source food, that we can put in those products, that we can produce. The other is there should be no labor increase to our labor structure. The only reason we would do that is because there's growth. I feel that there's a lot of opportunity for us as a program, not only internally, especially in the areas of catering for our own district, but we have a lot of businesses in Concord area, Pleasantville, that we could serve. I did that in Newark with AC Transit, Kaiser Permanente. We are very pro-business, pro-growth here in Concord, so there's a lot of opportunity for us there. And then I think the last is that we would be able to, through our funds, it's allowable cost to the USDA, that we would be able to buy the food service equipment for the central kitchen. This would be of no cost for the equipment to the district's general fund or food bonds. So, open for any questions.
So the phase two, $7 million is just for the construction, the shell of the new kitchen, the central kitchen.
Correct.
And you're saying that all the equipment would be purchased through food services, or the majority of it?
That'd be correct.
Okay. So how many square feet does 7 million buy us?
What do we need?
I'm going to do a hope for about 10,000, which is great. And I think that's a very doable number. It's doable for us to do production because we would be adjacent, connected to the central warehouse, which again would be a central hub. So we would move from production right into the warehouse, in through distribution, and out it goes.
So there would have to be some special engineering for the refrigeration sections and, well, yeah, we have refrigeration. Certain areas that have to be engineered for water and everything else, and the refrigeration. Okay. I'm sorry, am I?
No, I just thought Larry had something to say.
Well,
All of a sudden, we
people-
were blanks over there.
I'm just asking these questions because people think that a warehouse is corrugated aluminum shell with 4x4 posts in the corner, and they don't understand that the floor has to be engineered to bear the weight, and also it has to be insulated if you want the refrigerators to work well, and you're going to have a freezer in there that has a lot of weight. I know how we had to engineer it for a Girl Scout camp, so it was, anyway, okay. Then I have a question about,
Before you do that one, Ms. Mayor, mind if I just jet off of what she said? I saw it a little differently when you said, how much does 7 million buy us? I look at it as how much do we need, and is this going to accommodate it for the long run so we don't have to come back later and expand it? I look at, do we allocate an adequate amount so that you don't come back later? Is this good for years and years?
This is a long-term plan that I expect to outlive me.
I don't want to just say we bought something
No.
because we had this much money and so I bought this thing. And then, oops, now we have to come back and ask for more.
And just like, this is a common model. This is what was designed and developed down at Newark Unified School District. We had a warehouse connected to our central kitchen, and that's the way we distributed to those schools. This is not only going to upgrade the food quality for all of our students, this is going to be something that is definitely a direction that many school districts are going into. I mean, we're going to be part of that cutting edge of that. I mean, Oakland Unified School District is just building their central kitchen right now. And so I think as we take a look at, food quality and capability and growth opportunities, especially for our staff, this is also going to create in the future as we grow more jobs. And so that's one piece that is not only important in that aspect, but we will be able to control, which is what I've always done, the food quality and also the compliance of the USDA rules, which, as you all know, are some of the strictest rules that, we're the most heavily regulated department in our district. And so this is going to be able to give us more controls with that, which we're moving in the direction in it anyway with recipe development, which we have an audit coming up here from the California Department of Education. And so we're going to be putting more and more recipe development in, which requires us to do more work. And this is something I said as I did the battery powered grant that we were applying for on the 26th of February. Mount Diablo is not taking the easy route. We're going to do, what I mean by that is we're not going to push a button, and just expect it to show up. We're gonna have to work for it, and my staff is willing to do that with myself, which means we wanna cook.
Well, by the way, I figured you'd already thought about it for the long haul. What I wanted is just to have on the record that
Yes,
you have given this that kind of thought. This
Absolutely.
isn't something you have to come back in 2 years and say, we settled and now we need to add an extension. Because I think that's important for people to know, that
Agreed.
you've given it so much thought to do it right the first time that people can feel confident.
I'm hoping this is gonna be my last hurrah.
That's not a gotcha, that's
Yeah, no, I know.
I want it on the record.
So you want to finish up and ask some questions?
Okay.
On the 8 to 10% reduction in food cost, some folks will ask, well, are you going to be reducing the cost of the meals for students versus will you be using some of the funds to help offset the equipment costs? What I'm trying to recall when the last time was that we increased the school lunch cost in the district, and it's been
Well-
more than 5 years, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be coming up. I think we're probably gonna be, I hope, to be at least 2 years out. I just had to send something to the California Department of Education to make sure that we are in line, and now it's a requirement, that annually we have to send that to Sacramento.
Okay.
I think, yes, this will offset the equipment cost investment, but then it'll also, create more opportunity for access points into our other schools. So this will trickle into our school sites themselves. We know that, our secondary schools need more access points. And so what does that mean? That might create some other trailer or some type of another food type facility that we would be able to support fully with our program.
Thank you.
So I apologize, this was answered to last board meeting, but what is the phase 1, phase 2 referring to? Is a time frame?
I believe it's just a time frame. Phase 1, we would go into the warehouse, or it could be possible, I mean, upon a decision, that we would do both at the same time.
Yeah, if we can afford both, we can do both at the same time. We can do economies of scale and really do a great job.
So why was it presented phase 1 and phase 2 then? I guess my question is that just thinking that we wouldn't approve both at the same time or what?
You know, I mean,
They're very,
They're very separate projects. That would be,
yeah.
phase does imply timing, so there was no guarantee that they would be done together since they're separate items.
And Dominic, you do need phase 1 for sure, regardless of what happens, right?
we need phase 1 to completely change our program, and it will do that. And I feel very confident that that will. Because I believe so.
Thank you.
So I have another question. If the board were to approve this at a future meeting in March, would the design for the warehouse be completed and through DSA for the summer, or would it be a year from now that it would have to occur?
Fall of 2019.
Fall of 2019, okay.
Yeah. Mr. Key has one more question.
So I don't want to throw off your rhythm here, but,
He hasn't started yet, so it's okay.
but you know, I've got something on my mind and I'm afraid I'm going to be distracted through the rest of the presentation. So one of the things I thought was going to happen today, and I guess maybe because I was looking forward to it, was more for the sake of transparency for the general public, not just the board. But more oftentimes people would say, what has the money been spent on? And what I think the answer was, it's on the website. But I need a little bit of help there. And so, you know, unfortunately, you know, we can't look at that together. But I did go to the website and I might be missing, I don't know, excuse me, I don't know if it's in the quarterly reports, but so just let me use one example, if I may. And you'll know which one I'm going to use. So the Loma Vista Adult Center showed on this, if you go back to your slide 3, and it shows it in 1718. And I understand that list across the top is it's not mean all that, but just some steps. So I went to the website, clicked on school, right, and looked at what's under there. I guess I just want to know if that's really an accurate list. So what I've heard is that they're working on bathrooms some bathroom upgrades over there. I don't know if that's Measure C.
Yes,
Or not.
that is,
Okay, so that's not on the list. I mean, unless it's a more generic term that's being used, I'm not recognizing. And then other things. So I guess I'm just in general asking, is that list really, because it seems like some of the things on the list were done a long time ago.
Right.
So, there are folks, maybe not thousands, that really read this stuff, you know what I mean? And so it needs to really, kind of chronologically make sense, et cetera. So, I don't,
Just
I don't-
piggyback in there on, is that modernization? Are restrooms considered modernization?
right, but what I'm
But they're
saying
not
is,
listed that way.
there's a general, your little chart that shows the green checks, and Ellie was talking about whatever, oh, okay, great. Is there, and it does say, it just says modernization for 17-18, but then down below is more specific detail about the projects. And I was just trying to look at that as an example to what, and again, I can't remember what year it was, but Loma Vista went through modernization several years ago, which meant, paint everything.
Go back to.
Now, it's the Measure C website.
The parents and
Yeah.
everything.
Just
Just regular
regular
time.
steel.
Look at
Yeah,
it,
that works.
That's fine.
Oh, here you go.
There you go. So if you go to schools.
Yeah.
And then pick Loma Vista to the right.
Other
yeah.
sites.
There you go. So there's that checklist, and it does show 17-18, if you scroll down, 17-18, see the little green. So which means in progress, right? Is that what that
Right,
means?
so we're in the modernization phase.
Yeah. Okay, and I think if you go down further, there's a list. Right, if you scroll down further, more specificity, there you go. And so what I understood that right now, there's some bathrooms being worked on, a couple of bathrooms needed to be modernized, so that is modernization. But I don't, and then I guess there was a comment made, oh, we have extra money, do you want doors?
Mhm.
So,
It said exterior door.
So-
Yeah, it does say that
It
one,
doesn't
yeah.
say restroom.
So this is
Yeah,
an
extra money.
overview of what's going on. If you get into the actual quarterly report,
And
it
that's what I was asking.
refines it even more, and
Okay.
it's very specific as to what we're doing and when it was done. And I do have copies for you guys if you
Okay,
want, or
great.
you can get it on the website. But if you go back, and we can show them where the quarterly report is, you can go into each site specifically in the quarterly report, and it has dates on there, and it has everything that's happened on
by site.
everything that you guys have approved and when it was approved and how much was approved
By
for
site.
by site. Correct,
Right.
correct.
But
And I can show that to you real quick. You click on oversight committee.
Yeah.
Oh, we did. And then if you go to keep scrolling down, we've got agendas, meeting minutes. There should be some quarterly reports. So if you do quarterly reports at the bottom, go to December. Of what year?
December
Sorry.
17th.
Sorry. And it's a huge,
let's
big
let's look.
program. It's bad. But this is what we update every quarter. So it's got the latest and greatest in there for each thing on there, whereas maybe the rest of the website.
Maybe, because I do recall at our meetings, and I've heard it more than once, that it's about, the whole transparency issue and making sure we're being
Right.
super clear because, the whole thing we got hung up on is, oh, now you want us, not us, but I mean, district wants to spend more money, but what have you already done with the money, that question. So I think the way that we can make it crystal clear, so some, like maybe on that previous page,
Mhm.
some statement for more, detail around, the dates and the exact
So-
dollar amounts, go to the report,
Scroll
reference it
down
or
a little
something.
bit, Joe. And there's a little blurb at the bottom of each of these. Where are we? Keep scrolling
He's in
down.
a
Let's
report.
go to let's go further. Meadow Home. So let's say we go to technology. Keep going. Right here. So we got a project schedule. This will tell you exactly when things happen and what happened and where. So if I went to Loma Vista, it would say, okay, we've gone out for design on restrooms and it's been awarded, and now we're going out to bid and what the date's going to be and how it's taking
Yeah.
place. So that would give you the latest update in each one of these as we go. It's It's not all automatic. It's all done by hand in each site
Yeah.
with the software that we have. So it doesn't roll from here onto the website. So we need somebody to do that.
Like,
as
what I'm
well.
suggesting on the website is
Right.
a statement
Yeah.
that says, you know, for this kind
Oh,
of
to look
detail,
into
go
the
to the
detail. Yeah, we
report.
could do that for
I would
sure.
say that, and then I think the other thing that some people, you know, want it all in one spot. They want to see everything for
Right.
Pine Hollow, which is, you know, it's broken down by modernization and, you know, whatever, so. Look, I know you're busy doing the work, you don't want to have to think about, but I
But
just,
we
I
do
think
need to
it's a
report it
big
out.
barrier
And
for us.
I
Yeah,
agree
yeah,
that that's
I think
super
we wanna be
important.
as crystal
So
clear.
that's just so that you guys know, that's where the detail
Yeah.
is, and that's where we can really dig into it.
Yeah.
I will make sure that something's put on the greater website so that it does state that, hey, look at the quarterly report if you want the real refined stuff. And it is pretty much up to date now. Again, in April, it will be, it lags a few months as we do quarters. But
And I think for administrators, I'm sorry, no, I keep interrupting, but I think for, you know, site administrators to be, you know, have a handle on this as well, because I know that we've heard, you know, site administrators say, well, I don't, you know, we didn't get anything, or we only got this, or, you know, whatever. Everyone in this district needs to be able to speak more intelligently
Yeah.
and, with credibility around this, and make up their own list by their site or something, because it's a critical thing in terms of, you know,
And really, we
apples to
do,
credibility.
I agree with that. We do meet with the sites that we're currently working with, but there's a lot of other sites that we're not currently working with, and there's probably a lot of questions going on at that point,
Right.
because there's no interaction between our group.
And I
But
think
the current modernization group, we definitely meet with, and they know what's coming and where it's going and how we're doing it.
And
But
then sometimes I think your contractors maybe are saying things maybe that might.
while they're there, yeah, and that's possible
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But we do have the meeting. Rich and I tag team with these meetings, and we sit down and make sure that they know what's going on, and he's seeing them on a constant basis as well. So as he hears anything, he's letting me know. It's a good tag team.
I would just echo your project scope portion is extremely important as you update the part that has the schools. So if you think about as a parent, what you would look for, you would click on the school.
Right.
And frankly, if I was told, go look at this report,
I'd be frustrated.
I would. And there's certainly people that want to read the report, and for them, we have the report.
Right.
But if we can cut that project scope, because it says it all,
Yeah.
and just kind of maybe even, I think the webpage that we have is good for each school, and just maybe we can refresh our memories with our school staff to look at that, to go there, to connect it, and I think that would do the trick. And
I
I
think a
know
lot
it's
of our principals do know to go.
cut, they do,
Yeah.
to cut and paste that little portion on there rather than say go to the report, but also make the report available so they can see the detail. I think that would be the way. So if I want to see what AIR's got, I can click on AIR's and I can go in and I can see when and where, and but I think the update is part of it. But if we have too much, they're not going to look at all.
Yeah, I think whatever, just about being super clear.
Transparency. I agree. Thank you.
So I'm waiting for Mr. Estrada to get back to you. To where we-
Back to your tag.
Good afternoon, board members, Dr. Myers. These were all identified in our last board meeting and previous board meetings. These are identified as principal asks and requests for consideration. Concord High for science wing, College Park for restroom on campus, Northgate renovation of the science wing, Foothill restroom renovation, and Sequoia Middle for MU stage. These were all identified at that point, and for that cost, project total cost is $14,300,028. Any questions? regarding this particular slide?
I just ask all, because we have, this usually comes up too, we have 5 schools mentioned, and we have a lot of other schools. So just to verify that all principals and sites had a chance to give input in what they want to
Absolutely.
consider. And then was this culled from that? You picked out the yellows from it, what you considered yellows? Did some fall off the list because you didn't consider them?
That was the actual ask list. These were all the administrators that put in.
This is
correct me
the
if I'm wrong.
total list
Yes.
from all sites? Okay.
Just a clarification, as I understand it, and please correct me if it's wrong, just through my ears, the bottom 3 are the ones that I believe have been on that list for quite a long time. So just
Yes.
from the minute I walked into the district, these were the things that were pointed out. So I think it's important to know that those 3 communities in particular have been talking about those particular items. The top 3 have new leadership or the top 2 have new leadership and increased enrollment. And so those are 2 factors that play into the science wing and the restrooms.
And those at Concord High, because believe me, I've seen this, they have chemistry labs that are actually, they're fairly hazardous in a sense because you get more kids in there and they actually can't maneuver around those rooms very well. So is this all science classrooms in Concord High or particular classrooms? Because it's the science wing. So I know chemistry was a huge safety hazard. People were concerned about it with the number of kids trying to maneuver around now in the classes. But do you happen to know, is it the whole science, all science classrooms, or just things like chemistry that are very specific?
This is the wing.
Okay.
This is the request of the wing.
Okay.
So it's six or 8 classrooms in the wing?
Yes.
How did Foothill Middle School miss out on the restroom renovations? Because it seemed like you hit everybody else.
Well, at that time, doing the consideration, the restrooms are pretty modern compared to some of the other ones, so that's what it was for.
And we've certainly heard feedback from, just to go through them all, as mentioned, the science at Concord, and then the bathrooms. We've had a lot of feedback on the bathrooms at College Park. Northgate, we've all visited the half walls at Northgate in their science rooms where classrooms can hear each other. And then also the restroom renovations, you're right, because it's a relatively newer school, the 60s, 70s. And then Sequoia, a conversation that we've had as a board is that Sequoia is the only middle school that does not have that stage that other middle schools have, and it is part of what schools do is they use that auditorium for assemblies, etc. So just to go through those.
Can I add to that? The Northgate one, actually having taught there too. They don't have a wing, they have a circle, kind of a jigsaw puzzle. So at one point, there was actual conversation, I don't know, can't say it really happened at one of our study sessions, but of they didn't really miss out, they got a swimming pool.
Correct.
Yeah.
But in the process of getting the swimming pool, they didn't get a couple of classrooms, science classrooms, and they don't really have classrooms, they have areas. And people have built up things like rolling cabinets get pushed over to pretend it's a wall still. And there's actually some hazardous safety things, just the way they've stacked up stuff trying to create walls. But we're not talking about adding classrooms, we're talking about, because at first there was a discussion somewhere I had with a couple of classrooms outside the door into the science wing. From the outside, there's some land area. So it's not building the classrooms that the other schools got because that got taken up with the swimming pool. But it's taking that circle, that jigsaw puzzle of classrooms and organizing it in a way that makes it more classrooms and sort of labs, because they have a weird central lab. I mean, I actually taught there when there were no walls. And I had an English classroom with people going, "Give me a beaker," because we had no walls back then. And so they have sort of a weird central storage thing. It's a mess. So it's just taking that existing footprint and organizing it into something logical that's teachable and makes sense, not expanding it outside buildings.
Yes, just renovating those areas.
Right, and they do need it, by the way. I'm actually advocating for that because it's a mess.
So I have a question about the College Park restrooms, sore subject, but about 6 or 8 years ago, it was discovered that some of the restrooms at College Park were being used as book rooms, and then those were reopened. Are all of the restroom areas at College Park in use now? Have we done a walkthrough or a look at the original site plans to determine whether all of the restrooms are being used as they
restrooms-
were
yes,
originally
yes.
built?
All the restrooms are open now,
Okay,
but apparently with this current enrollment, they're requesting additional
more restrooms,
restrooms.
okay. I just wanted to confirm that because there were, I think they opened at least 2 restrooms there that were being used as book rooms.
I think they're on the perimeter too, because they ended up with so much expansion,
Mhm.
portables, and it became more of a trek to go to the restroom, I think.
And on their field, they do have that structure with restrooms as well, but it's not really accessible to the students during the school day.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that you have 5 schools on here and nobody else is feeling disenfranchised or
Till we start
under a
working.
grudge until the trucks back up and you start building.
I think
I
we
think
missed
that's
an
right,
opportunity,
yeah. I think we mentioned that these have been on there a while and other things have popped up.
Absolutely. Okay, this is Baker City remaining funds, Series F, G, and for a total of $46,653,624. Health and safety, there's been multiple things that's been identified on this here. Some of the things for the health and safety for approval is for just some items, and multiple items will be identified during our facilities master plan update, but currently windows, fencing, accessibility to the campuses, those are the things that are currently that's outstanding in front of us right now. That other things that happen in Florida that's been brought to my attention from all sites, administrators is concerned. So these are the things that we're looking for: window coverings, fencing, those type of things that's been identified. Cameras as well. So those are some of the top things for safety and health improvements. Moving down the list, project for consideration. We mentioned that, Dominic mentioned that earlier. Food service phase 1 and 2 for $11 million. Number 2 is Measure C facility improvement. That's at Prop 39. That was the last remaining, and the principal's request list, the ones we just went over a moment ago. So that is it. And with that being said, the balance remaining is 2.5, a little over budget, and that's the decision needs to be made on today.
And we have this on for information, and so your discussion will help guide us as we work towards making our future recommendations. And
Can I ask you too, because when you say we're in the red, just on this proposed grouping, we, at our last board meeting, approved that original group without the food service warehouse and central kitchen. And we didn't actually have final figures either.
Right.
So is that likely, how likely is that to impact this balance remaining?
Well, amongst us, one of the things that we recommend, or I don't want to say recommend, that if we could lose, would probably be the Prop 39 to get us in the balance to where we need to be. With that being considered, that's truly up to the board to make this determination. But that was one of our considerations, to try to get us back into the black versus the red.
So if we took those projects, which the board has approved, and you go out and get bids and find out they're, 2 million more than projected, or it's gonna be, isn't it, sort of?
Yes.
You're asking in a way that we approve the concept of this package, just like we did the last time,
Absolutely.
without costs. And then from that, the prioritization becomes do the reds and the urgents. But if there's a cost overrun or something costs a little more because of various labor
Right.
issues or materials issues or time issues, then that ripples over into the yellows. They'd be approved in concept, but not necessarily occurring in this bond. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, could I ask either Dr. Meyer, maybe Rose, to explain the Prop 39 payback? How does that work? Because if we get money back, it might kind of be a wash.
It is on, okay, so on that Prop 39, if you can go back a couple slides, Richard, just so that everyone can see what we're talking about. The way this works is that it's an investment. Yes, it's not a guarantee necessarily because, and that's why we need to caution that it's not 100% certain. But for the most part, the way the grant works is that we do that work, that district-wide HVAC control system upgrade. That would just simply provide the ability to have a centralized HVAC control system versus what we have right now. It's pretty manual. People are going out to the sites and that's very inefficient. So we do this work, we pay for it up front, we submit all, our application to the state, and through Prop 39, we would be due that 1.96. Now, the risk is that the state runs out of money. They decide that they're going to move in a different direction, and that can happen. So far, so good. What we've submitted, we've gotten pretty much about 90% of what we've applied for, so we've been trending pretty well so far. Probably about 5 to 7 million we've gotten back in the last couple years in Prop 39 money.
Yep.
Or some, yeah.
So the risk also could be a delay in payment, so.
Well, I still go back to the list that we approved at the 26, on the 26th isn't necessarily guaranteed to come in at those prices,
Correct.
regardless of Prop 39 reimbursement. That was my first concern, is the domino effect. And you're all very experienced and savvy about that, but I'm just bringing this forward that because these 5 schools are listed back here at the end, they're at the end of the line. Right?
Absolutely.
And we're still, that could be bumped and altered. And I just like things sort of said out loud so people don't have false expectations that all of this could be done if the board approves it.
And we would not recommend to approve everything at this time because it clearly puts us in the red.
Right.
And so,
Potentially farther in the red,
Correct.
with the 8
Right.
million, I don't know, without bids, but that's exactly a very important point, Dr. Meyer, is that we're, when we come back to our next board meeting, what the package of proposals would be to approve and kind of strategizing and prioritizing within that so that people don't feel in the public, well, you said you're going to do all of these things and where are those bathrooms at College Park? So I just say that out of caution.
So at the board meeting, we talked about the timing, the criticalness of approving what we did approve because of your timeline and summer work, et cetera. So my question would be on these, I guess I'm particularly focused on the 3 that have been on the list of the North Dade, Foothill, and Sequoia. And if you look at the 2 on the top are 7 million, just doing the math, in terms of what the overage is, but the 3 that we are at the bottom, what is your thinking about timing? There's summer.
It'd be
as
summer
well.
2019 for those bigger projects because we got to get them through DSA and they got to be designed.
Those
And-
3
and
would
we
be
wouldn't-
2019.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it'll be summer. We wouldn't want to be disrupting school,
Okay. That's still,
especially with science. We can't bring a portable in for science.
okay. So there's no urgency.
Yep.
and if there's a desire, and I think we should do this anyway, we would circle back to bring a more detailed analysis of the restrooms, for example, and the ratio of student to restroom, and certainly the other projects we can look and just consider alternatives. But truly, there's a great need, and this is just the tip of that need. So these ones are pretty glaring.
So our objective at the next meeting is to reduce this expenditure by 2.5 million, the list? Or are we believing, is it the belief that between the possible Prop 39 rebate and, what do I want to say, diligent spending that we might break even based on this list?
I don't know that I can answer that. I think our objective today is to really hear from you, your feeling about some of these things that have not been approved yet, which include phase 1, phase 2 of the kitchens, which include the centralization and the prototype building that are likely to be reimbursed, but when we don't know and to what degree we don't know, and then also the site needs in particular that have been there for quite a while.
So I guess my challenge is there's only one number that's close to 2.1 million because the other projects, the warehouse and the science renovations are all at 6 million. How do we divide, how do we have the expertise or knowledge to say, we'll take $1 million out of Concord High School and take $1 million out of Northgate, and then we say take $500,000 out of the phase 2 of the kitchen. I mean, that's, how do we
So I
do
think
that?
there's another.
Yeah,
that's
you
what I
look at amount that we're comfortable with, and then we wait until projects come in, and then we'll have a better idea of what's
Oh,
left.
so that's,
And then we continue to go down our list, and now we can do this, now we can do this, now we can do this.
Well,
That's
I
what I was
was-
asking about the timing
I
of
was
these other.
saying that these projects that we approved on the 26th, we don't actually have bids for yet.
Correct,
So we're
that is
really in
correct. So they could
lucky
possibly come in higher as well.
So the first
Yeah,
thing
to
to
go the
me
other way.
are just to take the items we approved on the 26th, and I was gonna ask just what the timeline is on getting bids and prioritizing those projects, because I think those have been approved, and that's the first priority. And then it's deciding what might come after that with what's left. So how would the timing work on, because we approved actually quite a handful of things there that you have to then scuttle around and get bids on, and
We're already in process with some. I mean, you can speak to that, right?
Absolutely. The tennis courts, we're moving forward on that. Our consultant is on board. He's in design. We're meeting out there. The geotech's been out there. So those are fully on the way, and we're planning on bidding those this summer and the work to be done. Then again, we don't know what the actual number come in. That was just a projection at 2.8, I believe the actual number was. We were requesting for the tennis courts. That could possibly come in higher as well as some of the other projects, fields and that stuff there. Until we get real numbers,
Right.
unfortunately, what we've been hearing from contractors and it's extremely high. So it's
that's
just
my worry. And then the question I had, because we approved, I forget how many, was it, what, 11?
14. Slide 5, Rich, people.
If-
Go to slide 5.
If the goal, I'm not talking about the amount of money, I'm talking about the number of projects. Is the goal to seek bids? Time is always of the essence, but is the
Yes.
goal to seek bids on all of those board approved projects and bring them back in one package, or to decide we'll pick this one out because fencing could happen, and then we'll bring that to the board? Is it, and maybe I'm asking a question nobody's answering yet, but maybe you have. Is it to pick out one project that seems more doable, or more, it comes in under bid or under the amount you projected, or to, it's not, I saw heads going no when I said to bring a package back. It's to bring, say, HVAC as the remainder of
Right.
the tech rooms might be something that you decide we can get this done, and oh, guess what, it's not 423, it's 419, and you're gonna bring them back that way.
yes.
Got it.
Our goal is to do all these that's been identified, the board took action on, to move forward with those right away.
As they come available.
Yeah.
bring them to you.
That's what I'm thinking, so the ripple effect is
You may have less
we
in
may
the
be
future.
talking about apples and oranges right now, because when these projects, which are board approved,
Yes,
are accomplished with the final bid and we accept the bid, then we have to calculate the math on what is left, because that other list of yellows may become a moot point, or it may be really, really doable.
absolutely. And one of the other fears is, even though we go out to bid, we may not even get any bidders. That's some of the things that, with the scale of the projects, it may not even happen in that way as well. So then it's postponed to another year, and that price even goes up higher.
So I guess now I'm a little more confused than ever before. For 27 million projects for consideration. When do you need board direction on those projects? Because if we delay too long, it's gonna be the summer of 2020
Yes.
before
Absolutely.
you even get to this, so although I understand Mrs. Hanson's desire to wait till we get all the bid packages.
No, that is not my desire.
Oh, I
No,
apologize.
please, do not speak that way. That is not my desire. I'm looking at the ripple effect on the whole package of projects that are in the yellows and also, rather than, we can't approve an entire package. I'm asking if you're gonna pick out some, get bids, and as you said, you might not even get a bid, or it might be so cost ineffective that you have to
Absolutely.
skip it and come back with that answer. So no, it's not a package I want.
Okay, if you look at this slide, the first line up there is the projects we've approved, and that's 21.7 million.
Mhm.
So staff is going out now, doing all the DSA work and
Mhm.
everything that's required. They're gonna bring back the bids to us and we'll approve them. Some of them will be higher, some of them will be lower. We can pray for lower, but who knows? The flood waters are running pretty high right now. But then there's 27 million down below that we're going to be asked for consideration. We can wait until everything is finished with the first 21 million, but that may put us 2 years down the line for DSA if staff doesn't have some direction currently.
Well, and I think that's what we do between now and our next meeting. As board members, we sit with it and prioritize in our mind what on that list we think we can bite off, not all of it. What are we going to start on sooner rather than later? And then we come to the meeting and we each lobby for what we want and we come to a decision and move forward. It might be half of that, it might be whatever as a board this for me speaking, we're comfortable with that doesn't put us in the red. That's what we vote on, and knowing that, depending how the prices come in, we might have to now start prioritizing, okay, well, we'll do this first and then we'll wait.
And just so you, staff, I'm sorry.
Staff is bringing forward, that whatever you allocate, we're gonna go ahead and design.
Yep.
So once we design, that works fine, right? So if we've got design for you guys, then that doesn't slow the process at all. And it's money well spent because we do need to do all of this stuff. So if it gets delayed and we designed it up front, but we don't have the money to construct it, we have the design ready to go when we do have money at a later time. So it's money well spent.
And just for future consideration, exactly how you described, a way to think about it as you prioritize is if you put it into 3 categories. 1, the kitchen, which has 2 parts, and you can split it, but the kitchen. 2, the energy ones, Prop 39. And so that would include the 2 parts, the prototype of the building, and then the centralized HVAC and other systems, which will save money. And then 3rd, the school needs, which you could also break out into the 5 parts. So if you look at those 3 ways of prioritizing, I think, if we can look at a buffer of that 2.5 or up to 5 million, if we have that order, then we will move through those projects in that order. And I would anticipate out of the 3, we will definitely be able to hit 2.
We'll hold you to that.
Can you write a check?
Yeah.
You have one more slide, right, Rich?
So this is the last slide here, and this is for future consideration is in red. Clear water filtration, that's stuff we're working on right now. We're going through testing all our water. We're looking, doing it. That's in progress now, but that's going to be an ongoing today as well as in the future type things taking place. Roofs, we're doing 10 of those currently right now, but we got 43 other sites that we need to be addressing as well coming up, as well as school safety. That's some of those things, just point of entrance, windows, those type of things that's been identified in areas of future needs, and as well as when we do our facilities master plan, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more things that's been identified in that process. The consultants, whoever they may be, will be identifying those as well. But those are the other additional things. MUs, additional needs is HVAC in all of our MUs. If anyone's been in our MUs and any presentations or anything is extremely hot, those are ones. Our fields are ongoing as well between irrigation systems, rodents, ground squirrels, gophers. We're addressing some now, but in addition, athletic improvements, that's our lockers and our locker rooms and all those things that needs to be improved upon. And portables, this is kind of our portable restrooms and these type of things that sites have kind of been requesting throughout. And facility upgrades, those are numerous of things, painting, flooring, exterior drainage. I know some of these sites that if you've been through in our last couple of rains, it's been, we got floods, it's all drainage system. So those are things, additional things that need to be considered. And I'm sure doing our facilities master plan, that would bring those up front as well as more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I turned off my microphone. I'm sure there are folks that were glad that I turned off my microphone. For the MU HVAC evaluation, when you're looking at doing the refrigeration, it's primarily people want cool air in the summer months, right?
Correct.
I had been told years ago that it would not be efficient or effective unless we put airlocks, an entry chamber at the access of all the doorways for the MU room. Will that be part of this evaluation? Will there be a study about that? I'm thinking about Concord High School. When you enter their multi-use room, you go through a first set of doors and then you go through the second. YB does that as well. College Park, no. So there are some schools that quote unquote have an semblance of an airlock versus just when you open the doors, all the refrigerated air is going to escape. So would we be looking at that, or there's another alternative where you install fans that helps keep the outside air from entering into the larger room when the doors are open? So
All that would be put in consideration at that time, but if you look at most of our MUs and our kitchens are all tied in together, and that's been one of the years past where as you come in the kitchens, that was one of the things where years ago we tried to condition some of our kitchens, and since they're all open, you pretty much got to condition the whole MU space, and that was one of those things that we got to consider as well. So yes, that would be all looked at the time.
thank you.
So that just reminds me, this is my last.
Somewhere in there were the central kitchen's air conditioning.
Mhm.
And part of it is those ovens are hot as heck.
Mhm.
Is that part of this? Did I miss that in there? I don't know.
That would be as part of the future MU.
That's part of the MU
Yes.
kind of kitchen area business. Okay, got it. Those are tied into that air conditioning. It's really hard in a kitchen, I know that. We have been through this conversation for 2 years now, I think. But I have to bring it up out of obligation to those poor people who are sweating in there. Especially Dominic's working them like crazy, creating designer food and excellent stuff.
They had to cook and everything back in the old days, and they did just fine.
Yes,
I would not dare say that to any of those people in the kitchen.
lost that culture somewhere.
And MU, primarily we are hearing from parents of elementary students.
Yes, they feel that.
Not that the others don't also want it, but that is where we're hearing the biggest requests.
Well, I think at elementaries, they have more larger gatherings of families and events during the time of day when it's warm than the high schools and middle schools do.
And they do keep them in the MU more effectively.
Thank you, everyone. That was good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I want to thank this great team here. Thank you very much.
And I guess on that note.
That's it.
The longest, Rich. It's old hat, right?